Welcome to Decades, hosted by Chris Rubio. Decades is a show made up of 5 generations of people brought together to discuss topics you wouldn't normally talk about with others. The goal of the show is to learn by having some good, possibly heated discussions, without losing the simple fact that it's okay to talk to different people with different opinions other than your own.
What's going on? My name is Chris Rubio, host of Decades. We've got a banner group. We will start with Sub 60 Ed out there in Virginia. Below him, or at least on my screen, I've got Tony Siracusa out in North Carolina. We've got Bill Geiser, Swim Smart, yes, out in beautiful state of Florida. Then we've got Nick Umble of Sentinel Strength. If you have not watched that podcast, I highly recommend it. He's out in West Virginia as well, or not as well, but over in that area. Very East Coast biased group today. And we might have some other people coming on. Guys, per our conversation we just had, two-sided question here. What is one thing that you thought would have been bigger growing up with? And I'll explain that in a second. Okay. And then what's one thing that frightened you as a child? Umble, I'm assuming literally nothing frightened you as a child, just knowing who you are. But I'm going to say, like, for instance, one thing that you thought would be bigger, like growing up. Am I the only one that thought quicksand was going to be like a major player in life? Because it was like on every video game, it was on every movie, and I don't think I've ever seen it. I don't even know if it's a real thing. Umble, we'll start with, and I'll say the one thing that I'm afraid of. I'm still afraid of them. Sub 60s and redheads.
You
So
should
if there's a sub 60 redhead, double whammy. Umble, we'll go to you since you look so adamant. What's one thing that you thought would be bigger in life?
Oh, I don't know. Going to an amusement park as a kid and then going to an amusement park as an adult is a completely different experience. Like, I'll never go
it costs.
It's just not as fun as an adult. I'll never go back. And the only thing it scared me as a kid. It still scares me now. Or snakes, man. I don't do snakes, bro. I do not do snakes.
Okay, my wife doesn't do snakes.
Umble, let's go back to you at amusement park. What ride are you fitting in?
Oh man, this was before I started competing, man. This was 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
You're still not a petite human being.
No, I was a big dude, but it's just, and I guess after you've spent time doing what I did, like with the adrenaline rush and all that other stuff, like the 4th of July, right? The 4th of July used to be like awesome, like lighting off fireworks. Well, once you've blown up thousands of pounds worth of explosives, fireworks don't do shit for you anymore. They're like, oh, look, it's a bottle rocket. Awesome.
All right. Sub 60, what's one thing that frightens you? And what's one thing that you thought would be bigger?
Well, I thought I'd be bigger, but that's not the point. You know, when you see your dad and you see your dad 6 foot, you know, you think maybe you'd be a little bit bigger in the end game. But no. What actually scares me and still scares me today is heights. I struggle with being up high, even if it's in glass. I can fly without a problem, but like if you're in something like in glass, like we were in Hawaii for our honeymoon, and we took a helicopter ride, and it was in a glass bubble, like through Maui or something, where they take you into the jungle, and I think my palms were sweating the whole time. So,
is this the Hawaii trip where you rode a horse too?
Yes. Where I rode the horse in, I dropped the reins.
I do not believe it one bit.
I dropped. Oh no! Great story. No, female horse person, whatever. I couldn't get up on the horse. She literally took me in one hand. She said, "Step on my hand." I'm like, "Yeah, right." And she literally just went whoosh and threw me on the horse.
Was it a real size horse?
Yeah, real size. Yeah, real size. Yeah, they kind of freaked out when I kind of accidentally dropped the reins. They were afraid if the horse got spooked, I'd be like all over the place. Anyway.
Okay, Tony, same question. Yeah. What's one thing that you thought would be bigger, and then one thing you're scared of?
One thing I thought would be bigger, people of my age, of my generation, were promised jetpacks long ago. Where's my jetpack to get around on, man? Whether it was TV shows or cartoons, or I was promised a jetpack, man. Where is it? I never got it. It should have been bigger. I'm not scared of a lot of things. I mean, I've been skydiving, scuba diving, driven a race car, hang gliding, done all that kind of stuff. But honestly, the one thing that creeps me out is snakes. And to segue to Sub-Zero, to Sub 60 Ed is I've been riding horses for about 32, 33 years. And, if you ride horses long enough, you get thrown. But the time I was thrown the hardest, the biggest toss was when my horse freaked out at a snake, because horses hate snakes because they can slither around the legs and the horses can't really maneuver well around them. So it freaks them out. And I was riding a retired thoroughbred racehorse, and he spooked. And I did what you're supposed to do. You take your feet out of the stirrups in case you get thrown so you don't get dragged. And I went head first into a wall and was knocked unconscious because of the snake. And I have a thing about snakes on top of that. So
that's
it creeped me out.
Wasn't it Christopher Reeves who ended up riding a horse, paralyzed from it, and paralyzed for life, and ended up dying due to it?
Because he did the show jumping kind of stuff. I don't do that. In California, I rode Western. I knew people who owned stables out there. And we'd ride up in the Hollywood Hills on Sunday mornings. That was always my quiet Zen time, 2-3 hours up in the Hollywood Hills on horseback. But yeah, that's what happened to Christopher.
That was a good one.
I just got knocked unconscious. But.
I mean, I like the whole jetpack thing. That was good. Bill Geiser?
Well, let's see. I'm kind of with Tony in the category that I can't really think of anything that's I'm terribly frightened by, but I do get triggered by cockroaches. And the trouble with them is they're so herky-jerky. They just, like, once they start moving and they're shifting from side to side, I mean, I go into the attack mode. I mean, I got everything in my hand from baseball bats to metal fly swatters, and I mean, it's a hunt to the death on those. And what's not as big as I thought it would be, I guess I'm just kind of traveled out. I used to think traveling was the best thing in the world, and I've been all over the place, and now traveling's such a pain in the ass. It's like, God, if I can stay off a plane, I go out of my way to do so.
I agree, but you're also a bigger man where it's not exactly as comfy a seat unless you get upgraded.
You mean I'm not svelte?
Well, no, I'm saying height-wise.
Hey, it can be even tough for us short guys too.
You have a first-class seat everywhere you go.
No, believe it or not, it can be tough. If I'm in the back, towards the back of the plane, because my legs are short and my knees don't necessarily go over the edge of the seat, I can get jammed up against the back of the seat in front of me.
Why don't you just lay down?
How do I lay down? Oh, excuse me, miss. Let me lay down on you so we can.
Yeah.
Let me just sit here. I paid for this seat plus yours, so yeah.
I'm telling you right now, Sub 60. If I'm sitting next to you, you're putting your head on my lap. Either that, or I'm getting like one of those baby Bjorns.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
Is Umble frozen? Because I had a question for him, but I think
I'm good.
Umble, in all your travels to like the Middle East and all that, I've heard some horror stories of the size of the bugs out there. Going off of Bill Geiser's roach comment, can you confirm?
Yeah, they're like camel spiders are fucking, dude. A body of a camel spider is like the fucking size of a forearm. Yeah, look up a camel spider.
No,
it's fucking massive. I have never personally seen a camel spider inside. I've seen one outside, and I'm not gonna fuck with a camel spider. You're gonna shoot it. It's like a fucking small dog. But yeah, dude, that's the only bug. Like my first duty station was Hawaii, and if anyone doesn't know, Hawaii
you see that, guys? That's a camel spider.
Yeah, they're fucking massive, dude. They're massive.
Yeah. Massive. It looks like it's as big as me.
So it's teeny tiny.
How bad can that be?
Thank you, Tony.
In Hawaii, so cockroaches didn't bother because they like fly and shit in Hawaii. But
okay. So Michael McD, what's one thing that you thought would have been bigger growing up? And then what's one thing you maybe were fearful of then or still now?
So I don't know if this counts for bigger, but I have to say that in the same way I heard you talk about quicksand based on your experiences watching TV or whatever, I would have thought stop, dropping, and rolling would have been a much bigger part of my life based on all the PSAs with Dick Clark I had to watch of people stopping and dropping and rolling. I'm perfectly happy that I've never had to do it, But as a kid, I would have thought, Jesus, houses must catch on fire once a month.
That's a damn good one right there.
Stop, drop, and roll, man. I might get a T-shirt that just says that and see who recognizes it.
Were you born and raised on the East Coast?
Yeah, born in Jersey, raised in the DC area.
Okay, so like in Southern California, we had the stop, drop, and roll, and then the second one was get under your $11 desk. There's an earthquake, and that's going to save you.
Yeah, because when the ceiling collapses on the building, that desk was.
We had a lot of feeling. We had a lot of feeling the door to see if it was warm before you opened it in a fire. There was all that stuff they did.
Grab the metal handle.
And I had friends whose parents had. And maybe people still have these. It never occurred to me to get them. And I have kids, and we're all up on the second story. I had at least 2 people in my neighborhood. It was very trendy in the 70s and 80s to have those like rolling ladders that you would keep in a closet upstairs, so you can hang it out an upstairs window and roll it down.
We have one. We actually have one upstairs under the guest.
I have one too.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I should maybe get one. But in the same way that Mr. Geyser is triggered by cockroaches, I have a rat thing, not unlike the guy in 1984, where I'm okay with mice, sort of whatever. They're small. If I'm in the city, I lived in the city for years down in DC, and if I'm walking late at night and a rat comes out of the alley and gets too close to me, I don't get scared for myself. I just have a visceral sort of reaction of what I guess would be called the willies, where I just want to get as far away from that thing as possible. And I don't know why. Birds, I'm fine with. Squirrels, I'm fine with. I think possums are ugly, but they never come near you. But rats are just horrible.
Go Sub 60.
I've got a funny story about rats, Michael. When we were adopting Vlad, we stayed in country with a family. They had a teenage daughter who had a pet rat that was probably about yay big.
Right.
So so pet rat.
No.
Okay. So let's move on. All of us are pretty much sports fans. We've watched a good amount of sports. I heard a stat this weekend at the Kentucky Derby that I want to know your guys' opinion. If there's a more impressive stat out there, if you've never been,
I already know where you're going.
Okay, if you've never been to the Kentucky Derby, I have. Not a big deal. We can talk about it later. It's very hot, and the infrastructure is absolutely terrible.
My sister got engaged at the Kentucky Derby.
I did not.
Many years ago.
Oh.
I've been to the Preakness, but never the Derby.
That every single horse in the lineup was a descendant of Secretariat. Okay, so we're going to start with Tony. Tony, is that the most unbelievable sports stat of all time?
I think he has at this point over 200 descendants because, when he was retired and put out to stud. The joke I heard over the weekend was, apparently, when he was put out to stud, even the barn door needed a safe word.
It's like the Elon Musk of racehorses.
Yes,
right. Exactly.
What's your thought? Is that one of the most impressive things?
I mean, it's not unheard of. I mean, I grew up on a farm in Iowa, man. Like you talk about, there are certain bulls out there that have sired full herds of cattle. So. But I mean, for a racehorse, but when they did the autopsy on that, wasn't there something? He was an anomaly, right? There was like his heart was like twice the size of a normal horse's heart. Like his lungs were like 1.5 size times the size of a normal. And it wasn't like that horse wasn't fucked up. It was like naturally he just had enlarged where he could take a deeper breath and pump more blood than any other horse ever. So that's not shocking to me that you're gonna fucking bleed that horse dry of every drop that you can so that horse can sire whoever, because I would assume that's what all those people are looking for. Can I get that anomaly in my colt? Mm-hmm. And my colt have that anomaly, and if you get that right, you're basically guaranteed a triple crown at that point, because no other horse can keep up with the dude.
Because you're now what? 4, maybe 5 generations past Secretariat. So, you take all that breeding over the decades and there's a few hundred descendants of Secretariat at this point. I know when they originally put them out and retired them, the stud fee was astronomical.
Oh, I can imagine.
I was going to say it's the business model of thoroughbred racing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I want to stay on sports greatness. In NBA basketball, a lot of people choose Kobe, they choose Jordan, they choose LeBron, maybe they choose another people. Now you got Joker and all those guys coming in. Over the past 2 to 3 years, would you say LeBron's quote unquote legacy has gone completely down on not just the win-loss, but just the overall media attention he's getting for Sub 60? Could you play that video for me?
You play? Hey, why are you showing soccer?
Okay, Sub 60, you could stop it. I mean, and that video goes, I think, for 2 minutes long, and you could pull off 100 clips. Michael, I don't know how much of NBA basketball fan you are. I used to be one, huge in the 80s and the 90s, and when Shaq and Kobe were together in LA in 2000s. I mean, I would watch literally every single game, and now it to me, it's almost unwatchable. Has LeBron's legacy just pitfalled?
I don't have a strong opinion about this. My son's the real NBA fan. He's 16 years old, and he's one of these kids who he decided 2 years ago to become an NBA fan, and now his head's just filled with stats and stuff.
Okay.
And I think the last time we discussed it, he would argue that, it's not too late for LeBron to have a couple good seasons and maybe have a little bit of a comeback before he retires. But if he continues to go at the trajectory he goes at, people will sort of say the myth of his age will have shown more, and people will it'll start to be he should have gotten out of the game earlier.
Okay, I agree. Bill Geiser,
and that's his gloss on it. But I guess my answer is it remains to be seen. Like, give him if he has 2 seasons where they win a championship and he plays really well, then he could retire and everybody will look back on his career like it was one big monolith of greatness, and they'll forget the last couple of years.
I think he's got the same problem in certain respects that Larry Holmes had, which is he followed the GOAT. Larry Holmes followed Muhammad Ali, and everyone thought he was going to be the heir apparent, and that's sort of the label that LeBron has had, and that's a tough expectation to live up to. I mean, the guy's a great player. Yeah, you can pick him apart for this and that, but I think where people might feel like he's falling short is against this impossible expectation. Let's face it, the guy's a hell of a player.
Oh yeah,
has been a hell of a player for a long time. He's almost like the Iron Man of the NBA, if you think about it. But he's never going to be Michael Jordan.
No. Humble?
I haven't watched the NBA in 20 years, dude. So I have absolutely zero input on it.
We shall move on to Sub 60 Ed.
As you and I talked, I think his legacy is going to be marred by the way, as we were looking in that video, he kind of falls down if he gets hit just a little bit. His toughness is going to come into question. Yes, he's a great player. He's broken records and so on, but I just think his toughness and his attitude could be his downfall. But there's going to be people that love him. The argument will be, who is the greatest? Is it Jordan or is it LeBron?
Well, I don't think
that will be the forever. So
go ahead, Tony.
Look, I think that you're going to look at, when it comes time for him to retire, you got to look at it in totality. This guy's been around forever. We forget that he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated as a high school senior because he was all that. That was forever ago. I mean, literally 20 plus years ago. But I think the longer he stays, we're going to remember the end more than we remember the early and the middle. And I to Michael's point, with his son talking about if he can capture another couple of years, I don't think physically he's got another couple of years in him.
Yeah,
I really don't. The injuries are keeping him out longer and longer, and they're more frequent. I think he's got a year left in him, and it's time to go.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me, Tony. You remember this? Remember when Kareem was toward the end of his career, and he started to cherry pick a lot more.
Oh yeah,
and then you could totally tell it was like the old man at the YMCA.
He never made it across half court to play defense in some games.
And it was like, okay, you're leaving a bad taste in my mouth, guys. Let's move on to. Is there anything we can do, or what do we do, or what are we watching with India and Pakistan going on right now? Is there anything going on with this? Is it just one of those that you just let them go? Nick Umble, we'll start with you.
That is a 200-year war.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I've been to Kashmir in India. I spent 30 days on a deployment up there. I've been to Pakistan. And that war has been raging for years, man. I mean, that war has been 200 years in the making, right? And they've skirmished in J&K because Jasmine and Kashmir have been fought over for years because the Indians have possession of it, but the Pakistanis believe that it was stolen from them, right? And so that's been a contention for, I don't know, man, 60 to 80 years. So this is nothing new. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if India is just more bolden now than they have been in the past, and they're just over it. I don't know what's going on there, man. I seen that tonight, and I was like, because there was an airstrike tonight in Kashmir, and I was like, okay, well, we'll see how this plays out. Now, with that being said, that's happened before, right? That's happened numerous times. It just hasn't happened in the last probably 10 to 15 where anyone's ever really brought it up. But they skirmish consistently on that border, right?
So if you're in charge right now, do you just say just let them go? To me, it's almost like watching, if you've ever seen like two drunk brothers at a bar, they always get into a fight, and it's just like just let them fight. They're gonna go back to the same house. I mean, I don't know.
So I guess, if I was in a position, if I was in a command, you would definitely be on alert. I would put guys in special operations. I would say, okay, like this is a thing, so let's be prepared for this to come out. If there's anything that needs to be done with those certain units to ramp that up, to potentially invest in helping someone out, maybe, you might move a couple carrier groups or one carrier group out into the Indian Ocean, just to have it in case something does pop off. But for the most part, man, this has been going on for 200 years. This is nothing new. It's just new in the last 15.
Bill Geiser, thoughts?
Well, I could see us trying to work the back channels diplomatically. Militarily, I kind of agree with Nick. Maybe my sense is we probably have relationships on both sides of this battle. So I don't know if we want to get involved and, flip a coin and pick a side, but diplomatically, it would be, I think, in our and everybody else's best interest to say, settle down, boys, count to 10. Don't do anything stupid.
Okay, Michael?
Yeah, no, I tend to completely agree with what everybody said. This is a job for the diplomats, not for boots on the ground. I definitely think that we should, work what we can work and see how it goes. And, to Nick's point, this is not something we're going to solve in a month or 2 months, going in. I don't want to use the hackneyed term quagmire, but this strikes me as being one of them quagmires.
This is an ongoing hatred that's been there for 200. It is so deep. Right. It is not.
That's not to say I wouldn't have diplomats working to say, hey guys, let's do a ceasefire, then let's do a détente, then let's do a truce, then let's do a treaty, and then or whatever, and let's try to cool our jets for a couple hundred years before we dry it up again. But that's what I would do.
Okay.
And if there's economic incentives we can do here or there or something, it's probably worth it. But to lead the world a little bit and get some peace. But it's not something I would be flipping a budget over for sure.
Tony, close us out on this one.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's absolutely correct. Obviously, this has been going on for hundreds of years. W and Obama used to talk about this was the scenario that kept them up at night more than most things. And it's why you don't let them just brawl it out without some sort of political intervention. A nuclear Pakistan and a nuclear India going at each other over a swath of land is some pretty scary stuff. You do, I think, as Nick said, a lot of back channel conversations. The challenge has always been we are inherently taking India's side. Trump and Prime Minister Modi are pretty tight. China is going to take Pakistan's side. And right now we're in a pretty icy relationship with China because of so many things that I'm sure we'll get to. So it's not as easy to work this through, but I agree with Nick and I agree with Bill that, you ready some troops for intervention purposes, but they're really there just as a show of force, not really in a military parameter, because you're going to work this through diplomatically. You have to. You absolutely have to do it diplomatically.
Okay. I don't think we covered this the last time, but I want to jump into it just because it was such a spicy topic. The NFL draft and the dropping of Shedeur Sanders. Was he just completely overrated? Did people pick up a smell test? To me, I couldn't give two craps what color he is. My thought is, Tony, you've been in a lot of locker rooms. That you, in my opinion, and I'm not saying because I don't know the dude, you could remove in every football team I've ever been on. There's always been one or two. We call them cancers.
Mm-hmm.
You remove one or two cancers, and you replace them with a non-cancer, and you'd be shocked at the number one overall attitude of the team, the demeanor of the team, the work ethic of the team. And it also, I think you guys will agree with me on this, whoever is the leader of the locker room, it doesn't even have to be usually the best player. And 95% of the times it's not.
Right.
But like Tony, you'll know this, you guys won't. When I was playing, I would say the main leader was Andy Myers. And he was a big monster of a hillbilly that I think he held the record for personal fouls in the Pac-10. But he was the meanest human being, one of those guys. Thank God he was on your team, but he was the overall leader, and it's almost like he ruled the roost. So I guess Tony, I'm going to start with you because you're the sports guy right now. What were you surprised at all him dropping? I was not. I literally was not. I was like, I would never have took him in the first 5 rounds.
I was surprised he dropped to the 5th round. I had him in shows I had done previewing the draft. I had him as the 3rd or 4th quarterback going.
Wow.
So mid to late
Which
second round, maybe early 3rd.
Where would that have put him? First
Pittsburgh.
Round? First round?
Yeah.
No. Like 2nd to 3rd round, late 2nd round, early to mid 3rd round. He was overrated as a quarterback. He's got some. If all you do is watch the highlights, sure, he's got some spectacular plays. If you watch the games, he's got some really bad habits that are going to take a lot of coaching to get through. He turns 3-yard sacks into 7-yard sacks because he tends to drift backwards when he's under pressure. And so he's got some really bad habits that you see on film. There's the other part of this, and you know how the game works, Chris. It's you can't turn down interviews at the combine when the teams want to meet with you. You can't.
Right.
You may think I only have to meet with these 4 teams because that's could be one of those 4 that pick me. But hey, there are trades that go on all the time, the days before, the day of. You don't know who's going to pick you. And I'll make a quick comparison. Travis Hunter knew he was a top 3 pick. He met with 15 teams because that's who wanted to meet with him. He did the pro day. Deion Sanders turned pro day at Colorado into a circus. They had, that's for the NFL scouts to come watch, and you do the drills, they do the time on stuff like that. What Deion did was he gave VIP seats to the boosters and made the scouts stand around behind them and didn't give them full access to the players. So the kid doesn't do all the interviews. He, didn't go to the combine, didn't go to the Senior Bowl, didn't do the Shrine Game, didn't do any of that. And it was kind of like he thought he had the leverage. Dude, you've never played a snap in the NFL. You got no leverage, none. So I was surprised that he dropped to the 5th round. Not surprised that he dropped. And Mel Kiper is probably still having an aneurysm. 2 weeks later, the guy had such a meltdown.
Don't get me started on Mel Kiper.
Yeah.
And Humble, that thing you just sent me, I think that's Mel Kiper.
Is it really?
I think so.
So,
Humble, read
on the Score app, there is a 53-year-old man from Georgia that just sued the NFL for $100 million due to emotional distress of Shedeur Sanders dropping in the draft.
No.
Yes.
I just sent it to Rubio.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know if he had the
That's
Score
hilarious.
app, so I sent him I copied the text and sent it to him. But yeah, I read that. So I played 1 year of college football, but I spent 15 years on an SFODA. And it's the same shit goes on there, man. If you got a
we don't speak code. What is an FODA?
If you're on a special forces ODA, man, it is a team. It's the same concept. Like I had a guy that was a medic of mine that he was there like 6 months and my team went to shit. And I was like, what is going on? Dude, we locked that dude out the team room like day 181. Threw his shit in the hall, changed the codes. Sorry, man. Go find somewhere else to live because you ain't living here. And my team was great 3 days into it, right? And so I agree with what Tony said. When you start turning shit down and then you start turning shit into a circus, and not to mention if you're gonna go to a team that has a coach that is on the fence, right? What is the talk?
Exactly.
And as much as I know that all these hardcore Pittsburgh Steelers fans are going to be pissed about this, I'm a big Mike Tomlin fan. I think Mike Tomlin does a great job. He has a winning season. He gets to the playoffs, but he has success. And I think he builds a bunch of men coming out of that organization. And I think he runs pro football the way pro football should be run. I would go play for that guy any day of the week. But if Shedeur ends up being a failure as a quarterback there, or they have one bad season, what is the narrative for Mike Tomlin, right? It's going to be Deion needs to come in and fix this. And that's another thing, right? And I think that part of the thing is Shedeur's never been coached by anybody but his dad before. This is the first time in his life where he's ever going to be coached by a head coach by someone other than his father. Right? Wow. And if you don't think that NFL teams don't look at all of that, I've heard guys talk intangibles, but fuck, that's got to be an intangible right there.
Yeah, that's a code
red. That's why it made me surprised Dallas didn't pick him, because I could totally see Jerry Jones getting upset at their performance and firing the coach and bringing Deion in as the head coach. But I think Nick's got a great point. Any coach, I mean, he's in Cleveland now, and the Cleveland coaches are nervous because they're looking over their shoulder to see what Deion's doing.
I agree. Bill Geiser, your thoughts, and then I'll go to you, Sub 60. I forgot about you.
Well, drafting high-level quarterbacks is a very risky gambit. I mean, look at all the busts that have happened historically in it. And with the amount of money that these teams invest in these guys, this is like buying a F-35 Raptor. I mean, you're putting hundreds of millions of dollars at stake. And Nick used the term intangibles. Boy, this is where intangibles really matter. I mean, these guys are all great athletes, and maybe they've got bad habits and things like that. You can, if they're coachable, you can work with them and get them to improve. But when it comes down to things like character and things like that, that's tough. I heard, in fact, I think it was this morning, I heard an interview, and it might have been a Tampa Bay coach or owner or someone like that. He goes, well, here's our draft approach. We create the draft board based on the best athlete, and then we do another pass on it, and we get rid of the assholes and the douchebags. And I thought, you know what? That's exactly what I would do if I were in that business. I'd want people that that are coachable, and I want to get people like a Mike Tomlin and say, let's just win together. And you got some bad apple in there, get him the fuck out of town.
I agree.
Don't waste your money on him.
Sub 60, then Michael.
No, I think I agree with what everybody's saying, and I think the Deion factor played a bigger role in it because Shedeur has his faults, but they knew it was a package deal, and he's coming in, and you don't know the kind of influence that Deion's going to have, and you don't want the coaches looking over your shoulder. And I just think the whole, like I think Tony was saying about the pro day, Shedeur's turning down interviews. I think that whole package plus Deion being Deion, you have to deal. You have to deal with it, and even in Cleveland now, as somebody was saying, I think it was just he was packaged very poorly from a marketing perspective. You need to package it better, like Cam Ward was. Cam Ward and Travis Hunter were packaged themselves very well.
Well, and then like Tony was saying, and there's a couple different quarterbacks that are like that. I'd rather have like a B quarterback than an A quarterback that goes A C. And a lot of times you can watch these I remember watching Cam Ward at WSU where he would have like 4 great plays in a row. And then I would look to my buddy and I go, close your eyes because a shit show's coming right now. And sure as hell, he would throw it 4 rows into the cheerleaders. Or, he'd do like the 19 spins and get a 20-yard sack. So it's one of those that I'd rather have a guy that's just throwing like 7-yard bubbles.
Well, and Cam suffered a little bit in Miami because he had Mario Cristobal as his coach, the guy that I got Miami fans clanking at me all the time because I refer to Mario as Coach Instacart. I'll let him do the grocery shopping. I don't want him cooking the dinner because he's a good recruiter. He's a bad in-game coach, and I've been called out by folks in Miami because I refer to him on shows as Coach Instacart.
That is kind of funny. Michael, take us home on this one. What's your thoughts?
I don't know much about this stuff, but I did follow the story a little bit. And, I don't know a lot about these kind of sports and stuff, but I do negotiate contracts for a living. And when someone shows up at the table and there's a guy like Deion being loud and talking about how amazing it is, and then the other guy doesn't go do the interviews and acts like he's not going to be a hard worker or humble enough to put in a little bit of FaceTime with somebody, it's got to leave a bad taste in people's mouths from the very beginning. And when there's a lot of talent on the floor, maybe that's exactly the thought process this comes with a little bit too much tax, a little bit too much aggravation already. There's already an attitude problem here.
Yeah.
If he's not going to show up for the interview, is he going to be late for the first day of practice? Is he going to be late for training camp? It's all that stuff is part of the calculation. It's got to be.
He was a code red from It's not my thing. Not my kind of player.
That lost 2-1 in overtime.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
Cap just lost.
What were you saying?
I have a question for Tony.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, Tony, and I guess it's for you and Rubio both.
Yeah.
So this is the first time that Deion Sanders, as a coach, the entire time he's been a coach, from Pee Wee to high school to college, that he hasn't coached his son at quarterback. What does that look like this year? That's going to be interesting, in my opinion, too.
It is, especially since from the time he was at Jackson State and then moved up to Colorado, Shedeur's been the quarterback. He's been QB1. There really wasn't much question. And it wasn't just because of Deion, because he was better than anyone else who was on the team. But Cleveland's got 5 quarterbacks now. And so there's going to be a bit of a battle. I mean, I can't believe they wasted a pick on Dillon Gabriel, much less taking him ahead of Shedeur. But nonetheless, he's going to have to fight to be QB3. He's going to have to fight to be the second string backup, and he's in for quite a challenge.
Did you see the Saints picked up some guy who in the combine just kind of threw it into the cheap seats, or like there's a video going out, and that's I guess the comparison they're making to Shedeur. They passed on Shedeur to take this guy who totally missed a route at the combine.
Yeah, but one pass. I was the complete opposite. I've coached all my kids, and they knew right out of the gate. I don't care if you're the best person on the team. I'm going to treat you the worst. Okay, number one, so there's no nepotism. When my oldest son was going through the long snapping ranks, I told him you'll never be ranked higher than 10 for me. I don't care if you're the best human being on the planet. I'm never going to rank you in the top 9 because everyone will say, "Oh, it's just because your last name's Rubio." And was he better than some? Yeah, he was. Did I care? And I told him from minute 1, you're never going to do this. And I've always, my kid will be pushed back more because I'm going to be stricter on him because I'm going to expect more. And they, most kids usually don't like being coached by dad because they're not as coddled,
No. Right. I was getting at how that's what I was getting at. Not about him coaching his kid. What I was getting about, this will be Deion's first year.
Yeah.
Since he's been a coach ever. Like, he's coached Shedeur for 16 years straight, from the time Pee Wee, high school, Jacksonville State, Colorado, QB number 1 for Deion has always been Shedeur. How does that change this year when it's not Shedeur? It's somebody different. It's not.
Yeah, if you look at Colorado's roster, Colorado's going to go back to being 4-8. Their roster is slim pickings this year.
Okay, let's move on. Let's get a little political. El Trumpo's first 105 days. Go ahead and grade them. A, B, C, D, F. What you think needs improving? What do you think, like, not too bad? Or what you thought, wow, this was a home run. I completely thought this was great. Michael, we'll start with you since you're so close to the screen.
Oh, sorry. My eyes are getting bad, and I was peering at something in the background behind one of you, and I was like zooming in a little bit too much. Sorry about that. I don't think I've hidden my feelings about Donald Trump over the last couple of weeks in these calls. And my favorite joke I saw on the internet recently was William Henry Harrison had a better first 100 days, and he spent 70 of them dead. So, I think it's all coming home to roost more and more now. I think we're starting to see shakeups in his staff. I think the signal thing, they didn't want to kill somebody over that. And then eventually they sort of had to pretend to. And in Trump world, sending someone off to deal with the UN is the equivalent of death. So they have sent Walz off. I know, Mr. Geiser, you had said when the signal thing broke that if Walz didn't get fired or be forced to quit, you'd be surprised. I think it took a little bit longer than you and I both thought it would. But basically the UN is I think, Trump's version of detention, and so that's where he got stuck now as a result of all this. I think it's been a mismatch of stuff, and I think the more the legal battles go on, and the two things I see happening are people who supported Trump's policies are now complaining about the fact that they're affecting them negatively, and B, he's losing in court, which he hates to lose anywhere, and so I think it's going poorly for him. I don't particularly love the way the country is being run. I tend to be a little bit of an environmental-minded guy, and in the last 2 days, he's discontinued the Energy Save program for devices, and he has made an executive order to stop testing air quality in national parks. And that doesn't sound important, except that one of the things they do before they allow someone to build a facility right next to a national park is determine how it will affect the air quality. And so my guess is you're going to start seeing smokestacks going up next to ranger stations pretty soon, because we're not going to test for that anymore.
Okay, so Humboldt, you voted for El Trumpo. Do you regret your vote? How do you think he's doing?
No, man. I'm just letting it all play out. I've said it on here before, weeks ago. Like, we've been doing the same shit for 60 years. He's doing something different. I'm going to let it play out. We're not smoldering. Everyone's not dead. We haven't been invaded yet. So I'm going to let it play out.
Kashmir's coming.
Let it play out.
Tony, what's your thoughts? A, B, C, D, F, first 100 days. What's good? What's bad?
I'm giving him a D. I'm resisting the F. I'll give him a D because I'm having a hard time. Look, the policies I disagree with. I disagree with a lot of policies from a lot of people on both sides of the aisle. Whatever. What I'm struggling with is he's throwing so much pasta up against the wall to see if it's cooked, and most of it's still raw. That it's almost like he's doing this chaos intentionally. Throw some new shiny objects out there so you're not paying attention to me losing in court over here, or you're not paying attention to Harvard fighting back at what I'm trying to do to them. You have nonsense like we're going to sit there and talk about how we have a $200 billion trade deficit with Canada. No, we don't. It's $35 billion. Canada is one of our biggest customers of our goods and services. Just because you repeat the lie constantly doesn't make it any more true. You put something out there that our Hollywood industry is being devastated by foreign countries. There were 1,200 movies released in the United States last year. 72% of them were made in America. Settle down. We're going to put Alcatraz back in play because we got some bad dudes, some bad citizens. Alcatraz makes $60 million in revenue as a tourist destination. It's going to cost hundreds of millions to put it back as a prison where it can only hold up to 300 people. We have 32 supermax prisons. I think we're fine on the prisons, but he throws all this other nonsense out there so that, you get lost in the details of the stuff that's really important. So he gets a D.
Okay. Bill Geiser.
Well, it's too early for grades, so we're still in pass-fail territory, and I give him a pass. I voted for him. I don't regret my vote for him at all. As far as personnel changes, I like personnel changes. Unlike the previous administration, who kept every stiff in place, regardless of performance, Trump is not one of those guys. If somebody is not doing the job as he expects it, he'll fire his ass and he'll put somebody in place. And I'm okay with that. The one thing I really do like about where we are today is we know who is in charge. We didn't know who was in charge for the 4 previous years. And now the truth is coming out about that. I mean, all of us knew, right? We all knew Biden was a few cards short of a full deck going into the thing, but no one would admit it. They were covering up for this thing, and somebody else or some other group of people was running the country. And in my opinion, that is the biggest fraud that's been brought onto the American people in the history of our nation. We elect presidents. We don't elect some fucking people behind the curtain calling the shots. And so give Trump his due. Here's something else. Every president plays this game. At the end of their terms, they juice the economy, trying to get elected or trying to get their party elected. And then after the election, they pay the piper. He's doing the same thing. He's playing the game. Let's give the guy a little time to do his stuff.
You actually stole my line because where lately both parties, well, one party's been saying it for 5 years, but then right now the Democratic Party, you've got Jake Tapper coming on about it. Jen Psaki's getting interviewed about it. A lot of people are starting to really question it. And Jake Tapper's even coming out with a book of when did Joey B decline start? Like, I started to notice this. And it's like, I remember Sub 60 Ed very specifically. I was traveling. I was on a plane watching the debate. And I was texting Sub 60 and I'm like, dude, are you watching this? And he's like, I can't believe how bad he is. And I remember going like this to myself, saying, I've been telling you this for 4 years, man. And it was one of those things that going along with Bill Geiser, does anyone find it kind of odd, Umbel, that I'll start with you, of how all of a sudden now it's all coming out of, there was a cognitive decline. We didn't know this, blah, blah, blah. Or, where
we all knew it was coming. Everyone knew it was coming.
Yeah.
I seen that on X for 2 years. Oh, well, all the books will come out when he's out of the presidency and we'll talk about it then. Whatever.
It's also not like we haven't been through that before. I mean, we elected Ronald Reagan, reelected him in '84, and the stories that came out afterwards were that the Alzheimer's was already starting well into his second term. And I'll admit, that was the first election that I was old enough to vote. And I voted for Reagan back when I was still a blood-sucking Republican.
The good old days.
It would shock most people.
I knew there was a likable part of you, Tony.
It would shock most people to know that there was a time when I took a leave of absence from my job because I was offered a job in media with a Republican presidential candidate, and I took it. And then he wound up deciding not to run and wound up as the vice presidential candidate instead. And I didn't want to work for that ticket, but I would have worked for him if he had run. So
Wow.
I see the hamster wheel in your head going, Rubio, trying to figure out who it was. It was Jack Kemp.
Oh,
Sure.
I was hired to run his California media for his exploratory campaign, which I was willing to do, and then he changed his mind.
Sub 60, you're still on. Did you want to say something?
No, I was just acknowledging that's impressive. No, I'm like Tony. That was like probably one of my first elections. I was a Reagan guy back. Reagan.
I voted for Clinton twice. My first election, I voted for Clinton both times. I thought Bush. Be honest with you, I thought Bush was a bitch, and I couldn't stand Bob Dole. So, like,
it's weird to hear you be so honest, Humble.
Yeah,
it's very odd. Okay, we've got.
Can we at least be concerned that Trump actually sat there and said, "I don't know if I have to follow the Constitution"?
That's not what he said. You are taking out a hyperbolic deal. That is not, Tony. I'm gonna argue that is not what he said. What he said was, I'm going to defer this to the smart lawyers. You're taking an MSNBC talking point and stretching.
I watched the interview. I watched the interview live. And
you're taking.
I'm not taking out of context
of what he said to go. Oh well, he said he didn't know, but the context is what matters. That's what I love about the media.
There's no question you have to uphold it. You
took a vow. Of course,
you put your hand on the quaint little book of analogies that some people refer to as the Bible, and you raised your right hand and swore an oath to defend the Constitution.
Now we have a problem with the Bible.
Yeah, well, of course, but
I am with Tony on this 100%. If a lawyer tells the president it's unclear whether he's supposed to uphold the Constitution, the only thing that president should do is get a new lawyer, because obviously he's supposed to uphold the Constitution. He swore to it as part of his. I mean,
his oath.
Everybody knows that's Civics 101.
I'm not even gonna indulge in your guys' bullshit.
I agree with that. You guys really think he's going to violate the Constitution knowing
100% if he chooses to. 100% because he thinks he's immune from the legal fallout that goes with it.
Was Biden's actions on the southern border a knowing violation of the Constitution?
No.
I thought he took an oath to defend our borders.
It doesn't say the borders. Where does it say the borders in the oath? Where does it say you have to defend the borders?
The Constitution? I don't think. I think reasonable people.
That's a political policy.
See, I disagree with you.
But that's a political policy. Ignoring the Fifth Amendment. That's a political policy debate. Ignoring the Fifth Amendment is a violation of the Constitution.
Wouldn't he have done it in his first term?
Frankly, I think there were things he did that probably did violate the Constitution. But I put his first term out of my head.
I can think of
show me the evidence.
I put his first term out of my head for my own sanity.
I would give him due process, but that's me.
You know, you don't understand. Why are so many people so entailed to see this man fail? You guys can't wait to jump on. I want him to fail.
I would love.
Do you understand the ramifications if this country fails for the entire fucking world? I don't understand. Like, I'm not saying the guy's doing the greatest bang up job. I don't regret my vote, and I want to see how this plays out. But what blows my mind is the amount of people on the left that are like, I hope this fucking guy fails. I hope this shit burns to the ground.
Respectfully, that's not me. What I would love to see is the checks and balances kick in. Correct. And I would love to see his governing that I don't agree with or that I think is unconstitutional or illegal countered by the courts and Congress. The courts are sort of doing an okay job with it so far. Congress are sitting on their hands. I don't want to see him fail. I want to see our country not fail. And I think things he's doing are driving our country towards failure. That's what I'm concerned about, not excited about at all. Trust me, the last thing I want to see is this guy drive us into the ground. I want our environment protected. I want our economy protected. I want my children to be able to have healthy lives.
But you just spent the last 4 years watching a guy in mental decline and the people behind the pole pulling the sheets. and using that guy as a puppet.
I agree. I'm not saying that's right. You just change the subject. I don't want to see Trump fail.
So you would like to see him make America great again?
I would love it if he. Well,
okay.
Well, I'd like a definition of what.
I would.
You walked into that, Michael.
No. I said no. I'm okay with that. Actually, I question whether America.
I'm going to get you that red hat. I'm going to get you the red hat.
I always think of America. I'll take mine in blue. I always think of America as a work in progress. I sort of question the notion of great again as if it was so great for everyone in 1963 or 1982. My point is, I want constant improvement for our country. Absolutely. I don't think I'm getting it now. But I would love to see constant improvement. I would like to see America better and better every day.
Stair-step improvement.
I would like to see America, dare I tap the word progress, in a progressive manner and get better and better every day.
I mean, I'd like him to not just think he can get. I'd like to see more actual strategy, because what he's doing is just. I mean, we're going to put 100% tariff. Nah, we're going to dial it back to just these categories. No, it throws the market. He is what throws the market into chaos, because he is an agent of chaos. It's not a mistake that the market has lost 3,000 points and about 11 trillion in value since January 22nd. And I realize most everyone on here, Rubio, you don't care. You're not retiring anytime soon. Your 401k is of no consequence to you. But to a lot of people, it really matters. And the damage is there. And yeah, we can wait and we can. There are people who can't afford to be financially damaged, who are going to hurt the worst if the economy suffers. Hey, he bailed out on his buddy, little, what's her name? Sarah Huckabee Sanders, right? Bailed out on Arkansas when he rejected her FEMA money. And I laughed. I felt bad for the people of Arkansas after the tornadoes, but I laughed because you know what, Sarah? He's your guy. And he's turning his back on you because that's kind of duty is. So that's just the way it goes. Your dad is ambassador to Israel, and you can't get a dime of help from FEMA because Trump says no. The way it goes, man.
So, but on that note, real quick, we'll just end. I know Sub 60, you're biting it, nipping at the bud.
We're clock's ticking, bro.
Okay. We'll end on that one then.
Well,
that's good.
No, wrap up. You wrap up.
I was just gonna say, okay, you guys want all these policies. What exact Joey B policies over the last 4 years were like? Well, that was a great one. I think the 20 million coming through the southern border, phenomenal idea to make America more progressive.
I thought that was horrible.
His trade policies made a lot more sense than Trump's do. His trade policies and his interconnectivity with the rest of the world, which we're isolating ourselves from some of the longest standing allies we've had in our history.
Yeah.
And then what would be your argument to the fact that someone like Umbo might most likely say, well, the other countries liked us more than because they could take full advantage of us?
I would refute that they were taking advantage of us. Trade is an open door that swings both ways. Sometimes it works in one side's advantage, sometimes in the other side. Trade is a long-term investment, not a I'm going to slap you around for 60 days and make you capitulate kind of deal.
Okay. Umbo, any final thoughts? All good in the hood? Sub 60, wrap us up, my man. Who's the overall winner besides me again?
I'm going to give it to Nick Umble, and I'm giving it to Nick. You know why? Because I just love his emotion and he comes back. He comes through larger than life every time, and he hasn't been on in a long time. And he's just so passionate. And, that big guy's going to come through that little screen. And just
most people think I'm an asshole, but I'm not.
What's that?
Everyone thinks I'm an asshole because I'm passionate about shit, but I'm really not.
You're not. No,
I admire the passion.
No, Nick, that's not at all why I think you're an asshole. I'm just kidding.
Hey, Mike, because you only leave because you and Sub 60 only live 50 miles. We could do lunch at some point.
Yeah, we should all do lunch together.
Let's do it. I'd love to do it.
Let's do it. Yeah,
You got to film that shit.
No, because actually Mike works in Herndon, which isn't far from me.
I'm over in Herndon once a week. So on a Wednesday or a Thursday, depending on what day I head over there, we can absolutely
either day, man. Either day works for me.
Okay, but Mike, Mike or Humble wear a GoPro. I don't want sub 60. I don't want crotch shots the whole time.
Why not?
Hey, Rubio, admit it. You kind of do. You kind of do.
On that note, my name is Chris Rubio. I'm for Sub 60 Ed, Bill Geiser, Michael McD, Tony Siracusa, Nick Humble. And that's it. We're out of here. Decades. Share it.
Later.